What has someone said to you that you can never forget? Sometimes you just have to let a ship sink. My boss, concerning my friendship with a coworker, I was too naive to realize was toxic. But this is so true for a lot of relationships and situations, on par with the second piece of life-altering advice I was given. Don't hold on to a mistake just because you spent a long time making it.
Yeah, I've been there. You think something's worth it just because you've invested time in it. That coworker seemed cool at first, but slowly, you notice their negativity creeping in. It's like watching a ship sink. You know you should just let it go. Sometimes you have to prioritize your own well-being, even if it means cutting off someone you used to trust. It's just part of figuring things out.
There are a lot of important things in life, but the most important is your health. Without that, all the other things get infinitely harder, so make sure you're taking care of yourself. Grandpa Chow, when he said this, he was like 90 and he regularly outpaced me while walking. He's alive, we just don't live in the same country. He also taught me to make and pour tea the right way. I'm very fond of him.
Sounds like your grandpa really knows what's up. It's impressive how he stays active at that age. Learning to make tea from him must be special too. Those little traditions mean a lot. It's good to remember that health is key in life. Definitely makes you appreciate the time you have with family.
Don't put your mother and sisters through that shit again. I had a heroin addiction that I was just getting cleaned up when my dad passed away. I was only 2 months sober at the time. He said that to me as he held my hand 5 minutes before his cancer killed him. December 17th will be my 6th anniversary of no dope.
That sounds like a tough moment. Losing your dad while trying to get clean must have been really hard. It's impressive that you've stayed sober for 6 years now. That takes a lot of strength and determination. It's good to hear you're doing better. Keep focusing on that journey.
On one of my college internships, I was standing in a hard hat/reflective vest near a coworker at a drill site next to a high school. A teacher pointed at my coworker and told some students, "That is why you go to college. You don't want to be standing out there making minimum wage like that guy." My coworker was a structural engineering PhD with his own practice. We used to have Christmas parties at his mansion in the foothills. It makes me question my own perceptions about people I do not know.
That's an interesting story. It's funny how people judge based on appearances. Your coworker seemed to have a lot more going for him than what others saw. I guess it reminds us not to judge too quickly. You never know someone's background or how hard they've worked. Makes you think about all the assumptions we make about people. It's good to keep an open mind, really.
Working in a machine shop in 100+ degree heat, asked the fellow I was working with at the time if he would be all right with me leaving to go get a quick cup of water. He told me, "Every man deserves a drink of water." A simple enough statement, but every time I think about it, I convince myself more and more that there's a deeper meaning to it. Edit. I feel like some clarification is needed. I was working in South Louisiana, where summers are usually brutal. We had safety meetings over the hazards the entire season, so it wasn't like we weren't uninformed. Second edit. Thank you guys for my highest rated comment. Your stories are awesome. BTW.
That memory of your coworker really sticks with you. It's true, something as simple as a drink of water can represent something bigger. Especially in tough conditions, it's a reminder that we all need to take care of ourselves and each other. Working in extreme heat like that, those little moments matter. Just goes to show how even small acts of kindness or understanding can really resonate.
Well, my favorite grandfather was in his final days with hospice, my cousins, and I had been spending a lot of time at his house. We were bored one day, and while he was napping, we built a tree house, a pretty cool one for 12-year-olds. My grandfather was the type of man always tinkering in the garage with a project. When I told him about it, he wept. He couldn't get out of bed to see it, and he knew he would never be able to. While holding back tears, he said, I'm sorry I can't see it, buddy, but I'm so proud of you. I wish I could have helped. I wanted to take down every piece of that thing and burn it right then.
That sounds really tough. It's rough seeing a loved one near the end and feeling the weight of that. Building the tree house was a nice idea to keep busy, but it's hard knowing he couldn't see it. His pride in you must have been both comforting and painful. I get why you'd feel like destroying it in that moment. Emotions can hit hard during times like that.
Doctor told me a few months ago when my BP got up to 270/150. You got to get this under control so you can raise your son. I knew this, but to hear someone say it out loud, I just started crying. And since then I've lost 50 pounds, take my medicine religiously, and my BP is normal now. Also, my son, who he was referencing, was born 2 days ago, healthy and perfect in every way. Edit. Sorry I'm the dad. I guess I left that part out. Anyway, thanks everyone for all the positive comments. Sometimes Reddit ain't so bad.
It's a big deal when your health suddenly becomes real like that. Hearing a doctor say what it is can hit hard. Losing weight and getting your BP in check is impressive. And congrats on the baby. It's nice to see how things can change for the better. Just goes to show how motivations can turn life around. Glad things are looking up for you and your family.
Friends don't let friends starve. I had a friend say that to me when I was without any food at all, just due to circumstance. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I had moved and had some unforeseen expenses and was min wage earner. I needed to last a week till I got paid. When he found out, he came over with some basics and stuff like craft dinner and whatnot. He was like, look, you're just in a bad spot, and you help people like that. He just asked that I pay it forward and not be suckered in by irresponsible people. Edit. Whoa. Thanks for all the comments. I'm reading them all, but won't reply, it's too much. Didn't expect this much attention. He's a great friend. After work, I'm going to call him and make plans to go visit.
That's a solid story. It's nice to see friends stepping up when things get tough. Sounds like your buddy really had your back. It's true, sometimes life throws unexpected stuff at you, and having someone willing to help out makes a big difference. Paying it forward is a good way to keep that kindness going. A simple gesture can really stick with you. Hope you guys enjoy your time together.
Holocaust Museum in DC a few weeks ago. You're given the passbook of a person who was a victim of the Holocaust and then told to get on an elevator. It's a little book that gives you little snippets of their life before, during, and after. You read 1 page per floor. As we get on the elevator, the older gentleman who works there says, "Okay, everyone in? Okay, you're going up to the 4th floor." He scans a little badge in the elevator, it beeps. He says, "Did everyone take a passbook?" We all nod. Good. One of them was my mother. Doors shut.
That sounds like a powerful experience. It's heavy to think about the personal connection the guide had to the history there. Reading snippets about a life lost, and then hearing someone share their own ties to it must have really added weight to the visit. It's a reminder of how these stories continue to affect people today. Moments like that stick with you.
One more. I was about 5 or so, which would put this in the mid-70s. In the elevator of the apartment building where we lived, and I was standing next to our next-door neighbor, an elderly Jewish woman. I noticed something and asked my mother at maximum volume, "Mom, why does Mrs. Goldberg have a tattoo?" My mother, needless to say, was furious with me and was ready to skin me on the spot. Mrs. Goldberg, on the other hand, took it in stride. First, she calmed my mother down, saying something along the lines of, "He's too young to understand. It's okay." Then she said the most kind and thoughtful thing any person has ever said to me. She said, "It's fine to ask questions. Now, I want you to promise me something. Someday, when you're older, you'll learn why I have this tattoo. When you do learn, never ever forget."
That's a memorable moment. I can see how that would really stick with you. Kids don't always get the weight of what they ask. It's cool Mrs. Goldberg was understanding and turned it into a lesson. It's wild how a simple exchange can have such lasting impact, especially when someone takes the time to share their story like that. Guess it shows the importance of asking questions and learning from others.
Me and my older sister have different dads. I think my mom was either still in love with my sister's dad, we call him Daddy, or she just didn't love my dad, Papa, as much as she loved Daddy. Mommy and Papa used to argue a lot when I was younger, and usually he would end up taking me somewhere to get out of the house while my sister would stay with my mom. One time it was pretty bad, so he took me to play badminton, and when we left, my mom told us to never come back. When we finally did come back, I can't remember if she'd locked us out, but I remember walking into the living room where she was sitting with my sister on the couch, and without even turning to look at me, she said, "It's fine if you go with Papa. I don't need you. I have your sister." She's apologized for a few times, but it really bothered me when I was younger.
That sounds rough. Family dynamics can be complicated, especially when parents have unresolved issues. Your mom's words must have stung, especially at a young age. It's tough when you feel like you're not as important. Apologies can help, but the scars often stick around. It's good that you can reflect on it now, even if those feelings linger. Relationships change, but those memories shape how we see ourselves.
My younger sister and I had a rough time together. Our family is not lovey-lovey in any way. She has never wanted children. I always have. She once offhandedly said that if we were ever in a position, she would be a surrogate for me. It had never even occurred to me. It was then I knew she loved me. We never talked about it even then, but she said it, and that meant the world to me. Still does.
It's interesting how people show love in their own ways. Your sister's offer really says a lot about your bond. Even without discussing it, that moment seems to have changed things for you. It's not always about saying the right words. Sometimes, it's just the thought that counts. Families have their own ways of caring, even if it's not the typical picture. It's nice that you both have that understanding.
A little dark, but when I was a teenager, my dad's sister liked to visit. Normally, I wouldn't see my dad drink at all. Maybe 1 or 2 beers if a bunch of relatives came over. When my aunt was here, she would encourage my dad to go bars with her. She was an alcoholic working as a bartender, still is, as far as I know. He called to ask for me to pick him up because he knew I try to be a good son, and he's picked me up when I was underage drunk. He didn't care if I drank, as long as I was safe about it or told him in advance I'd need a ride. Anyways, driving him and Aunt home, she was passed out in back of a car and my dad was plastered. He drunkenly looked at me and said, "I wish you were born a girl, so I wouldn't be so ashamed of such a sissy son." From that point on, I stopped trying to do things to impress and gain his approval, and did what I wanted to do. Edit, I'm 28 now, and Dad and I don't even live in the same state. He doesn't remember saying it, I never brought it up. We talk a couple times a month on the phone, and I don't go home to visit. Everything is fine.
It's interesting how certain moments stick with you. Your dad's words were harsh, but they pushed you to carve your own path. It's strange how someone can influence you for the better, even if it was unintentional. You developed a sense of independence that a lot of people struggle with for longer. It sounds like you found peace with the situation, which is what matters most in the end.
We take the time to treat sprained ankles. It's the same way with mines. My chemistry professor, after I told him I was dropping his class to focus on my mental health, he didn't know I had just attempted suicide and I felt utterly broken. However, he said sprained, not broken. Sprains get better. I could get better. I got better. Smiley face.
That's a solid perspective from your professor. It's interesting how some people can have a way with words that sticks with you. That idea of a sprain implies healing, and it gives you a bit of hope. It's good to hear you managed to come out on the other side and focus on getting better. Sometimes, small things from people can make a big difference in how we view our struggles.
I was helping out in a department which I am not part of for the company I work for. They were short-handed, and I didn't want to be inside all day. I was emptying the trash cans on the street downtown that are our responsibility. One of the bags busted, so I put on some gloves and started picking up the trash. A man about my age walking with his son says to him, "This is why you go to college, so you're not working like this." I will tell my son when he is older that any work is respectable work if you're providing for your family. And don't be a dick.
It's interesting how people judge jobs. I once helped out in a similar situation, just filling in where needed. Not the most glamorous work, but it felt good to contribute. I think it's important to show that every job has its value. That dad's comment was a bit off, though. Teaching kids respect for all kinds of work is key. It's all about the effort and the purpose behind it, right?
Went to Kenya in 2014. The safari guide gave us tips on how to handle different animals. Don't stare down buffalo. Lions are actually quite lazy animals, but don't annoy them with loud noises, etc. He gave stories on how zebra are pretty much the stupidest animals and are spooked by everything, even their own tails. Then he said in his Swahili accent, "If you see a hippo charging us, just accept we are dead." He didn't smile or laugh. Silence ensued.
That sounds like quite the trip. It's interesting how the guide shared those tips. The part about the hippo is wild, though. You don't really think about how dangerous they can be. It's funny how something as simple as a zebra can seem so clueless. I guess nature has its own rules. Makes you appreciate how cautious you need to be in the wild.
My first real boss gave me some great advice. He said, "You're going to fuck up? Just make sure you know it before they know it." I had made a mistake and was trying to figure out how to deal with it before my district manager found out. Instead of trying to cover it up or find some excuse, I came clean, told him I screwed up, and offered a way to fix it. Since then, I've always found success with being honest in those situations, and it's never failed me.
That's some solid advice. It's true, owning up to mistakes before they blow up is key. I had a similar moment at my first job. I messed up a report, and instead of dodging it, I just told my boss. He appreciated the honesty, and we fixed it together. From then on, I learned it's better to just come clean. It builds trust, and you avoid a lot of unnecessary stress.
Once I was talking to a customer who was a teacher, and somehow it came up that I cannot, no matter how hard I try, spell the word scratch correctly. I kept jumbling the T and the C at the end. She pointed to a sign with the word scratch on it, and she said, "Oh, look at that rat in there." I didn't know what the hell she was talking about at first, but with that one little sentence, the teacher fixed my inability to spell the word scratch. I feel like I got tricked into learning something that day, and I'm very appreciative. Edit. Since this seems to have brought up a lot of handy spelling tricks. Any tricks for the word necessary? Edit 2. 1 collar, 2 sleeves. Thanks for this and several other mnemonic devices. Smiley face.
That's a good story. It's funny how a little comment can change your perspective on something. I remember struggling with some words too. There was this one friend who told me to think of necessary like a shirt with 1 collar and 2 sleeves. The way they explained it just stuck. Sometimes it's the simplest tricks that help the most. Glad you found something that worked for you.
Never felt like this before an older father figure explained this to me about having kids and who comes first. I love my kids, but they're nobody I love more than my wife. Why, you ask? Because my kids one day will grow up, start a family, and leave us. But my wife will always be by my side. But you have to know and accept it won't be the same for your wife.
That's an interesting perspective. It makes sense in a way. Putting your partner first can help build a solid foundation for a family. Kids will eventually grow up and leave, but the partnership remains. It's a bit of a wake-up call to prioritize the relationship. Balancing love for both can be tricky, but knowing where to focus might help keep things stable.
Son, change your shirt. You look like a dildo. My dad, to me at age 8 at it. As an 8-year-old, I didn't know what a dildo was. I thought it just meant stupid idiot or something like that. My dad took my brother and me to a Catholic church to get help with our bills, and while waiting, my brother took the book I was reading. Naturally, I shouted, "Give it back, you dildo!" In the middle of a room full of nuns. Edit 2. Glad my most upvoted comment is about dildos.
That sounds like a classic kid moment. You got caught up in the words without knowing their real meaning. Kids often mix things up like that. I'd imagine the nuns had quite a reaction, though. It's funny how those moments stick with you. I had similar experiences where I said something totally awkward, not really getting it. Guess we all learn in our own way.
You need to get through this. If you turn your back now, you will regret about this your whole life. If you push further, you will look back and just laugh about this moment. True enough, and it's a wisdom I share with people too. Edit. I was having problems with stakeholders for my project and was being attacked personally. I told my manager I can't go on anymore. She said this to me. I was able to turn things around and have completed one of the most difficult projects we ever had. I feel I'm a much stronger person with a much better self-awareness.
It's interesting how a few words can shift your perspective. I remember facing a tough situation at work too, feeling overwhelmed and ready to quit. A mentor encouraged me to push through, and it turned things around. I learned a lot about resilience and myself in the process. It's true that when you look back at those tough times, they often turn into moments of growth and even some laughter.
Mai told me this when I said I was going to be a prison officer just like him. I was about 8. I was expecting him to be excited. He said, Don't do what I did just because I did it. You could be so much more. You could do so much more. Don't limit yourself according to me." The words he remembers from me when we were in the car and he was smoking and I asked him why. Age 4 or 5. "Daddy, why do you smoke?" "Dad, it's a bad habit, me. Why is it bad?" "Dad, because it can hurt you. Never smoke Sean me. But why do you still smoke if it's bad for you?" He threw the cigarette out the window and never smoked again.
That's a pretty intense conversation for a kid to have. Your dad was clearly trying to teach you something important. It seems like he was aware of his choices and wanted to push you towards a better path. That moment of him quitting right there must have meant a lot to you too. It's interesting how small conversations can shape our views on life. Those lessons stick with you.
You will never amount to anything. A coach from my Little League baseball team told me that when I got tagged out at third base. Never told my parents, and I never played baseball again after that day. Edit. Dang, this exploded more than I thought it would. Thanks for all the support. Just a small continuation. While I have never really played baseball again, I don't hate it. I love taking my family out to watch some games when we can. I also had the opportunity to work with some awesome coaches in basketball and tennis after baseball. Through them, I gained important skills of working together and the need of self-improvement. As far as the questions whether or not I amounted to anything, I graduated from college, have an awesome wife and son, and have been employed for the past 7 years. Is there room to grow? Of course there is. I'm human. Thanks again for the support, and I sympathize with everyone who dealt with something similar to what I did.
It's interesting how a single comment can stick with you. That coach probably didn't realize the impact of their words. Not playing baseball again makes sense, but it's cool you found a way to enjoy the sport differently. Working with other coaches seems to have rounded you out. Life is about growth, and it sounds like you've taken that to heart. Congrats on your graduation and family. That's what really matters.
Givers need to set limits, because takers rarely do. Unknown. I've always been a generous person. People matter more than stuff. There have been times where it's caused major burnout, because I had nothing left to give. This quote hit me hard in the feels, and since then, I've learned to say no, and I'm much, much happier.
That quote really resonates. I used to give a lot without thinking about my own limits. A friend of mine kept asking for favors, and it drained me. Eventually, I realized I couldn't keep going like that. Setting boundaries wasn't easy, but it changed my perspective. Now, saying no feels like a step toward taking care of myself, and I feel better for it. Sometimes you just need to prioritize yourself.
Backstory: my grandma had Alzheimer's disease and was living in a nursing home. She had a lot of other health problems around this time, including a broken hip and multiple UTIs. My mom was at the nursing home almost every day to help care for her and would drag 13, 14-year-old me along multiple times a week. Now, Mom and Grandma never got along well, even before the Alzheimer's. This was a particularly bad day, and I wanted nothing more than to go home. It was around this time I was very depressed and almost suicidal. My mom had left the room for a minute, and in a moment of clarity, my grandma looks at me and says, "I'm glad you're here." Still makes me tear up. She barely knew who I was at this point, but I was so happy just to have her acknowledge my presence.
That moment really hits home. It's wild how a simple statement can carry so much weight. Being there for someone who doesn't remember much but still recognizes a familiar face is powerful. It must have felt like a ray of light in a tough situation. Those snippets of connection can really lift you, especially when things seem overwhelming. It's the little things that stick with us.
Having lunch with an old friend discussing my pending divorce, including the 4-bedroom house we had bought and were actively trying to make babies to fill them with when he had the affair. Not sure I was ready to face such a poignant stab to the heart, but he shared this quote, and it'll stick with me forever. The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you'll never have. Son Kyogol.
I had a conversation like that with a friend once. We were talking about our past and the dreams we had. It felt heavy, reminding me of what could have been. The quote really hit home, making me think about lost opportunities and the paths we didn't take. Sometimes, reflecting on those moments can be tough. It's a reality check, but it also helps to move forward in life.
I was a homely, awkward girl with glasses who transferred to a new school for 9th grade. It was a private religious school, and I didn't know a soul. Being terribly shy and quiet, I really hadn't made many friends by Christmas time when I had major dental surgery. Teeth pulled, braces, horrible chains that were anchored in my gums. I was slinking back into school afterward, mortified, when a popular junior guy stopped me in the middle of the hall and told me to open my mouth. I did, and he looked carefully at my Frankenstein mouth. He said, "That's rough, but you'll be beautiful when it's all over." I'm 52, and I have never forgotten that guy's kindness. Scott, I hope you've had a great life.
It's interesting how small moments stick with us. That guy, Scott, did something simple but meaningful. It doesn't take a lot to be kind. I had a similar experience once. A random classmate helped me when I was lost in a new school. It made a difference. We often remember those acts more than we realize. Kindness costs nothing but means a lot. People should do it more often.
How pathetic is that? My mom talking about my brother's self-harm. I was about to tell her about my own issues with depression. "Why do you even come?" The only words the head coach of my college sports team said to me during my entire freshman year. In hindsight, I think she was right, but I think I was trying to prove to myself that I won't quit.
It's tough when you feel like you're struggling, and the people around you don't really get it. I had a similar moment when my friend opened up about their issues, and I was dealing with my own stuff too. It's hard to balance that. Coaches can be intense, but sometimes their words hit harder than intended. Proving to yourself that you won't quit is a challenge, but it can also be a weird source of strength.
I am sorry. It had to come from someone. My mom and dad divorced when I was 8. Shortly after that, my dad's mental health declined dramatically. Whenever I went to live with him for half the week, I had to take care of myself, and sometimes him. He wouldn't even get up until 3 in the afternoon, and I had to do everything myself. As I grew older, I stopped living with him. He became manipulative. He was my friend one moment and a hostile monster the next. My mom wanted me to have some kind of relationship with him since he was my dad, but he would emotionally abuse me every time I tried to mend things. Mind games, abusive languages, and even bad-mouthing my mom. That was it. I couldn't do this shit anymore. Eventually, I told my mom, who had been my everything throughout my life, that I'd made the decision to never have contact again. We cried. We hugged. She said she loved me, and then, I'm sorry. It had to come from someone. My mom apologized in place of a father who never would. One good mom is worth 1,000 shitty dads.
That's a tough situation to be in. It sounds like you had to grow up fast, dealing with your dad's issues. It's clear your mom played a huge role in supporting you. That decision to cut ties must have been hard but necessary. Sometimes you have to protect yourself, even if it means stepping away from family. A good parent really does make a big difference. Sounds like you have your priorities straight.
I was talking with some friends about kids. Myself and one other girl had a child each. I was not married, she was. She made a comment that if her son were to grow up and get a girl pregnant before he was married, she would personally pay for the abortion BC. She wouldn't want that on her family. Everyone got quiet and it was slightly awkward.
It's interesting how conversations about kids can take unexpected turns. That moment must have felt heavy. It's one of those things where opinions clash, and you see different values at play. Some people handle family stuff with strict ideas, while others are more open. It can create a bit of tension. I wonder how everyone felt after that comment lingered in the air.
When you're feeling down, say Fruit Loops 3 times in your silliest voice. You can't be sad after that. My husband's advice to me: I have problems with depression, and I have learned to recognize when I'm depressed and that there's really no reason for it. It's not something I can pull out of completely, but the pure silliness of this helps me out. I've also used this on others, especially with kids who are just having a bad day. Works like a charm. Smiley face.
It's pretty interesting how simple things can shift your mood. Your husband's advice is a nice reminder that sometimes the silliest stuff can break the heaviness. I've seen it work, especially with kids. They just start laughing and forget what was bothering them. It probably feels good to have a little ritual like that. It's those small moments that can really make a difference, you know?
1. In early 2014, I was working in a call center for an insurance company, and there was a bushfire. I was talking to a family had lost basically everything and was probably on the phone for an hour with them getting all their claims underway, sorting them out with emergency funds, etc. About halfway through, I ended up on speakerphone in the car with them while they were driving. I was speaking to the wife, but in the background I could hear the husband trying to explain what was happening to their young kids. Hard to tell their age, but they would not have been school age. The kids kept asking stuff like if their toys would be still there, or if anyone was feeding their pet ducks while they were away, and the poor guy had to try and explain that all of their toys were gone, and that their ducks, and every other pet they had, was almost certainly dead. Rough day at the office.
That sounds heavy. It's tough to handle those situations, especially when you're just trying to help. I can't imagine the stress they were under, dealing with everything they lost while trying to comfort their kids. You did what you could in that moment, but it's still hard to be on the receiving end of such grief. It really puts things into perspective about what matters most.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.